family secrets and hard truths, when honesty shatters bonds. Imagine carrying a wound so deep it shapes every step you take. Yet the world expects you to smile and pretend it doesn't exist. Now imagine the person who caused that wound asking you to hide it for their sake. This is the story of a young man, torn between truth and reconciliation, whose decision to speak out unraveled a family and sparked a firestorm of controversy. It's a tale of betrayal, guilt, and the devastating power of honesty. One that challenges everything you think you know about forgiveness and family ties. The weight of a father's blame. At 27, I've lived my entire life under a shadow cast by my father. When I was born, my mother died during childbirth. A tragedy that broke my father irreparably. He didn't just grieve. He pointed the finger at me, a newborn, as the cause of his loss. "You killed her," he'd say, his words cutting deeper each time I heard them. Raised by my aunt, I grew up craving his approval, only to be met with cold indifference or outright hostility. At family gatherings, he'd look through me as if I were a ghost. By the time I was a teenager, his accusations grew louder, more vicious. "I can't stand to look at your face," he once spat, leaving me to wrestle with guilt I couldn't comprehend. This story isn't just about me. It's about the universal human need for acceptance and the lengths we go to chase it, even when it hurts. Psychologists call this the confirmation bias. We seek out evidence that reinforces our deepest desires, like my longing for a father who could love me. The truth comes out. At their home, his wife was warm and welcoming, oblivious to the truth. She spoke of mending fences, of building a family. My father sat silently, his eyes pleading with me to play along. But as she described our estrangement as a petty falling out, something snapped. I couldn't let the lie stand. Not after what it had cost me. I told her everything. The aftermath. A marriage ends, a truth endures. Days later, I learned they were splitting up. My father's wife called me, sobbing, to apologize for putting me in that position. She'd had a long talk with him, where he admitted everything. She couldn't stay with someone who'd treated his own son so cruelly. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "You did the right thing." Her words were a balm, but they didn't erase the guilt. Two people's lives were upended because of what I said. Even if it was the truth, that's a heavy burden to carry. Against my girlfriend's advice, I met my father one last time. For the first time, we talked about my mother, how much he loved her, how her death shattered him. He admitted he'd always blame me, even if he knew it was wrong. If you hadn't been born, she'd still be here, he said, not with malice, but with a raw honesty that stung. He apologized not for his actions but for dragging me into his new life. It was the closest he'd ever come to accountability. We agreed a relationship wasn't possible and said goodbye. This moment was a reckoning, not just for me, but for anyone who's ever faced a painful truth. The sunk cost fallacy tells us we keep investing in broken relationships because of what we've already endured. A parallel tale. The cost of abandonment. To deepen this story, consider another scenario from the same document, one that mirrors the themes of truth and responsibility. A woman, married for 12 years, decided she wanted a divorce, not because of her husband, but because she no longer wanted to care for her disabled stepson. She'd raised him as her own since he was a baby, but now overwhelmed, she wanted a normal biological child. Her sister called her selfish, sparking a heated argument. The sister faced a dilemma. Should she tell the husband, risking family ties, or stay silent? This story flips the script. Where I chose truth, the sister grappled with silence. Both choices carry weight, but they highlight a universal truth. Our decisions ripple, often in ways we can't control. The stepmother's desire to leave wasn't just about exhaustion. It was about rejecting a role she'd chosen, a betrayal that could scar her stepson for life. Psychologists note that moral licensing can lead us to justify selfish acts after years of sacrifice. But at what cost to those who depend on us? Why truth matters. These stories challenge us to confront uncomfortable questions. Behavioral science backs this up. The bystander effect shows we often stay silent to avoid conflict, but silence can perpetuate harm. By speaking out, I disrupted the status quo, forcing my family to face truths they'd ignored. It wasn't pretty, but it was necessary. As for the stepmother, her sister's silence might preserve peace now, but it risks greater pain later. A call to reflect. So where does this leave us? My story, and the stepmothers, aren't just about family drama. They're about the courage to face hard truths and the fallout that follows. I don't have all the answers. Maybe I was too harsh, too quick to burn bridges. Maybe the stepmother's sister should speak up. Or maybe she should listen more. What I do know is this. Truth is a double-edged sword, but it's the only way to cut through the lies we tell ourselves. If you're carrying a secret, ask yourself, what's the cost of silence? If you're hiding from a truth, consider, what's the price of facing it?